You wake up in the morning and feel that deep exhaustion, as if you haven't slept at all. That heaviness on your right side that you try to ignore but is always there, reminding you that something isn't right. You look in the mirror and notice your belly is bigger, even though you haven't changed your diet much, and your clothes are tightening in a way they didn't before. You go to the doctor, get an ultrasound, and hear those words that make your heart sink: fatty liver, hepatic steatosis. And then comes the part no one tells you about. After 50, this isn't just a minor aesthetic issue or a matter of shedding a few pounds. It's a silent, ticking time bomb that can explode in ways you can't even imagine. You leave the doctor's office with a prescription, maybe a note telling you to lose weight and exercise, but no one explains why fatty liver at 50 is completely different, completely more dangerous than it would be at 30 or 40. No one tells you your body has changed, your cells have changed, your liver's ability to recover isn't what it used to be. And every day that passes without you understanding what's happening is another day walking towards fibrosis, cirrhosis, advanced type 2 diabetes, and even liver cancer. You're left there, alone with your doubts, your fear, feeling like you're aging too fast, that you've lost control of your own body, and worse, feeling like it might be too late to reverse it. But what if I told you it's not too late? What if I showed you exactly why your liver after 50 reacts completely differently to accumulated fat? And more importantly, what you urgently need to do, not tomorrow, not next week, but now, to stop this condition from progressing to something irreversible. There's a recent study published in the Journal of Hepatology in 2024 that brought alarming data showing that patients over 50 with hepatic steatosis have a progression to steatohepatitis, which is the inflamed and dangerous form of the disease, 3 times faster than younger patients. 3 times faster. This means the time you have to act is much shorter than you think, and every decision you make today, every meal, every hour of sleep, every level of stress is either accelerating or decelerating this destructive process happening inside your body right this moment. I've been a hepatologist for over 20 years, and during these 2 decades, I've seen thousands of patients with fatty liver. I've seen people in their 30s with simple steatosis who reversed it in 6 months, and I've seen people in their late 50s and 60s who took years to reverse it, and some who unfortunately couldn't because their liver was already too fibrosed. And you know what the difference is between these 2 groups? It's not just age. It's what happens in the body after 50 that most doctors don't explain to you in the office because they don't have the time, they think you won't understand, or they themselves haven't kept up with the latest research. I created this channel precisely for people like you who are over 50, who've been diagnosed with fatty liver, and who feel like they're fighting alone, without quality information, without a clear path. If you want to truly understand what's happening in your body, if you want a specific protocol for your age, if you want to reverse this condition before it's too late, then subscribe to this channel now and hit the notification bell. Every week, I bring you information that can literally save your life. Protocols based on the latest research, things that many doctors still don't know or don't have time to explain. You are not alone on this journey, and I will guide you step by step to regain your liver health. Don't put it off, because after 50, every week counts. Now, before I explain exactly what happens in your liver after 50 and why it's so dangerous, I need to tell you Mariana's story. Mariana was 52 when she first came to my office. She was a teacher, married, mother of 2 adult children, and always an active person. She walked every day, ate relatively well, and didn't drink alcohol. But in the last 2 years, Mariana started gaining weight, especially around her belly, and she felt a tiredness she described as unlike anything she'd ever felt before. It wasn't just physical fatigue, it was a deep exhaustion, a mental fog, a difficulty concentrating that was even affecting her teaching in the classroom. She had an ultrasound and discovered grade 2 hepatic steatosis, and her blood tests showed ALT at 78 and AST at 65, elevated but not alarmingly high. Her doctor told her, lose weight, exercise, come back in 6 months. Mariana left thinking, okay, I'll lose weight, I'll diet, and everything will be fine. But 6 months later, even though she had lost 8 pounds, the ultrasound showed that the steatosis had progressed to grade 3, and worse, her inflammatory markers were rising. Mariana was doing everything right, but her liver was getting worse. Why? Because no one had explained to her that after 50, the game completely changes. I'm going to explain to you right now what's happening in your body this very moment if you're over 50 and have fatty liver. First, you need to understand that your liver isn't just an organ that filters toxins. It's a true metabolic factory responsible for over 500 different functions in your body, including producing bile for fat digestion, regulating blood glucose levels, synthesizing essential proteins, metabolizing hormones, and detoxifying everything you ingest. When you were younger, say 30 or 40, your liver had an incredible capacity for regeneration. The liver cells called hepatocytes renewed themselves rapidly. The inflammatory response was controlled, and even if you accumulated a little fat there, your liver could handle it without major problems. But after 50, 3 critical things happen in your body that turn fatty liver into a much bigger threat. First, the capacity for cellular regeneration drastically decreases. Your hepatocytes don't renew themselves at the same speed, and when a liver cell dies from excess accumulated fat, it's not replaced as quickly, creating areas of fibrosis, which are like scars on the liver. Second, insulin resistance, which is the inability of your cells to respond properly to the hormone insulin, worsens significantly with age, especially in women after menopause, because the drop in estrogen levels directly affects insulin sensitivity. And third, your body's inflammatory response gets out of whack. This means that when fat builds up in your liver, the inflammation that should be temporary and controlled becomes chronic and destructive. It releases inflammatory cytokines that don't just damage your liver, but also affect your heart, kidneys, and brain, drastically increasing your risk of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Now I need to pause here and ask you a really important question. And I want you to be completely honest with me because your answer could help thousands of people watching this video right now. When you found out you had fatty liver, what was the first feeling that came up? Was it fear? Was it that feeling of powerlessness, like your body is betraying you, like you're getting older and losing control? Or was it guilt? That voice in your head telling you you should have taken better care of yourself, that you should have exercised, that you ate wrong your whole life? I know exactly how hard it is to carry that emotional weight, that silent worry you don't even share with your closest people, because you're afraid of being judged, of being told it's your fault, of being told you let yourself go. But I need you to know one thing. You are not alone in this, and it's not just your fault. Your body has changed, your metabolism has changed, and you deserve quality information to understand what's happening and what to do. So I want you to comment below. Use these words if you like. I have fatty liver after 50 and need help. Don't be ashamed, because when you comment, you're showing other people they're not alone. You're creating a wave of support, of strength, of community. Comment now, because I read every single comment, and your story matters, your struggle matters, and together we're going to turn this around. Returning to Mariana's story, when she came to my office after those 6 frustrating months where she had lost weight but her liver had gotten worse, the first thing I did was order more detailed tests. I ordered a liver elastography, which is a test that measures the degree of liver fibrosis, and the results showed she was already at grade 2 fibrosis, meaning her liver already had significant areas of scarring. Mariana looked at me, her eyes full of tears, and asked, "Does this mean I'll need a transplant? Am I going to die from this?" And I explained to her that no, grade 2 fibrosis is still reversible, but time was running out, and she needed to understand that the protocol for reversing fatty liver after 50 is completely different from the protocol for younger people. Just losing weight isn't enough. Generic exercise isn't enough. It requires a specific approach that takes into account increased insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, reduced cell regeneration capacity, and the need for strategic supplementation of nutrients the liver needs to heal. Let me explain in scientific but accessible terms what happens when fat accumulates in the liver of someone over 50. First, you need to understand that fatty liver doesn't primarily come from the fat you eat. That's a myth many people believe. Fatty liver mainly comes from the excess of refined carbohydrates and sugars you consume. Because when you eat white bread, white rice, pasta, sweets, sodas, your body releases insulin to control blood sugar. And if you already have insulin resistance, which is very common after 50, your cells don't respond well to this insulin, so your pancreas has to produce even more insulin to try and control your glucose. This excess insulin has a dangerous side effect. It activates an enzyme in the liver called de novo lipogenesis, which literally means the production of new fat. This enzyme takes excess glucose and turns it into triglycerides, which are fat molecules, and deposits them directly inside liver cells. Now imagine this happening every day, multiple times a day, for years, and you start to understand why your liver is full of fat, even if you don't eat a lot of fat in your diet. But here's the part few doctors explain. When you're 30 or 40, your liver can handle this fat buildup relatively efficiently. It burns this fat through a process called beta oxidation. It exports this fat in the form of VLDL into your bloodstream. It regenerates quickly. But after 50, especially if you're a woman and have gone through menopause, your capacity for beta oxidation decreases because the levels of certain hormones and enzymes that facilitate fat burning drop dramatically. Additionally, your liver's ability to export fat also decreases, so the fat gets trapped inside the liver cells, accumulating more and more until the cells start to swell, become stressed, and release danger signals. And that's when inflammation begins. And when inflammation becomes chronic, you move from simple steatosis, which is just accumulated fat, to steatohepatitis, which is fat plus inflammation. And that's when the risk of progression to fibrosis, cirrhosis, and liver cancer increases exponentially. Let me tell you now about Jose, who was 58 when he came to me. Jose was a businessman, worked a lot, traveled constantly, ate out almost every day, and had absurd chronic stress. He discovered he had fatty liver during a routine checkup, and his doctor told him the same thing everyone tells people: lose weight, exercise. Jose tried for a year. He joined a gym, started walking, even hired a personal trainer. But the problem was he continued eating the same way. His stress levels remained sky high, he slept poorly, and the result was he lost 14 pounds, but the fatty liver didn't decrease, and his inflammatory markers kept rising. When Jose came to my office, I ordered comprehensive tests, and we discovered he had not only grade 3 steatosis, but also extremely high levels of ferritin, which is a marker of iron overload in the liver. This is very common in men over 50 with fatty liver. Excess iron in the liver potentiates inflammation, accelerates fibrosis, and makes reversal much more difficult. Jose needed not only dietary and exercise changes, but also therapeutic phlebotomies to reduce his iron levels. And only after that did he start to see real improvement in his tests. Now let's talk about the practical protocol, what you actually need to do if you're over 50 and have fatty liver. First, you need to understand that losing weight is important, but not just any weight loss will work. You can't go for those crazy shake diets, soup diets, or cutting out everything and starving yourself, because that will just lead to more inflammation, more oxidative stress, and can even worsen your liver. What you need is gradual, controlled weight loss, about 1 to 2 pounds per week, focused on reducing visceral fat, which is that stubborn belly fat that accumulates around your organs. To achieve this, you need a diet with strict control of refined carbohydrates completely eliminating sugar, soda, white bread, white rice, pasta, cakes, cookies, anything that spikes your insulin. You need to increase your intake of quality protein because protein helps preserve muscle mass during weight loss, and after 50, you lose muscle mass very quickly if you don't consume enough protein. And muscle is essential for insulin sensitivity. You need to eat good fats like extra virgin olive oil, avocados, and nuts because these fats don't turn into fat in your liver. They actually help reduce inflammation. Second, you need to exercise, but not just any exercise. Light to moderate aerobic exercise like walking is good, but it's not enough. You need to do resistance training, weightlifting, exercises with weights because this builds muscle mass. And muscle is an incredibly important metabolic organ for burning glucose and improving insulin sensitivity. Studies show that people over 50 with fatty liver who did weightlifting at least 3 times a week experienced up to a 30% reduction in liver fat in 6 months, even without losing much weight on the scale. This happens because muscle draws glucose from the blood independently of insulin during exercise, which reduces the metabolic load on the liver. Third, you need to sleep well, and this is something many people underestimate. Chronic sleep deprivation, sleeping less than 7 hours a night, increases insulin resistance, raises cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone, and high cortisol promotes the accumulation of visceral fat and liver fat. Studies show that people who sleep poorly have TGP levels up to 40% higher than people who sleep well, even with the same diet and activity level. Fourth, you need to consider strategic supplementation. I'm not talking about taking just any supplement you see online. I'm talking about specific nutrients with scientific evidence for reducing liver fat and improving liver function. Vitamin E, in the form of mixed tocopherols, has studies showing a reduction in liver inflammation in patients with non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, NASH. Omega-3s, especially EPA and DHA, reduce triglycerides in the liver and improve insulin sensitivity. N-acetylcysteine, a precursor to glutathione, the liver's primary antioxidant, helps reduce oxidative stress. Berberine, a natural compound, has effects similar to metformin in improving insulin resistance. But be careful. You shouldn't just start taking supplements on your own. You need to talk to your doctor, get tests done, and take the correct doses, because an excess of some supplements can overload the liver. Now let me tell you the rest of Mariana's story. After she understood what was happening in her body, after she implemented the complete protocol, focused on reducing refined carbs, increasing protein, resistance training 3 times a week, improving sleep, and supplementing with vitamin E and omega-3 under supervision, she came back for tests 4 months later. And guess what happened? The ultrasound showed that her steatosis had reduced from grade 3 to grade 1. Her TGP levels dropped from 78 to 32, and the elastography showed that her fibrosis had regressed from grade 2 to grade 1. Mariana cried in the office, not from sadness, but from relief, hope, and gratitude for finally finding a path that worked. And she told me something I'll never forget. I spent 2 years thinking I was doing everything right, but nobody had explained to me that after 50 my body works differently, that I needed a different strategy. Now I know I'm not alone, that this is reversible, and that I have control over my health. Some questions I frequently get in the office. First question: if I have fatty liver, can I eat eggs? Yes, you can and should eat eggs. Eggs are an excellent source of protein and choline is an essential nutrient for the liver to export fat. The myth that eggs are bad for the liver or increase cholesterol has been completely debunked by science. Second question: do I need to take medication for fatty liver? It depends. If you have simple steatosis without inflammation, lifestyle changes are usually sufficient. But if you already have steatohepatitis with inflammation and fibrosis, it might be necessary to use medications like pioglitazone or vitamin E under medical supervision. Third question: can fatty liver turn into cancer? Yes, it can, especially if it progresses to cirrhosis. Fatty liver disease is a risk factor for hepatocellular carcinoma, the most common type of liver cancer. That's why early detection and proper treatment are so important. Let me tell you about another case to help you understand the importance of acting fast. Helena was 61 when she came to my office. She had discovered she had fatty liver 5 years earlier, but her doctor had told her it was normal for people her age and that she didn't need to worry too much. Helena trusted him, didn't change anything, and continued living her life as usual. When she finally had an elastography, she discovered she was already at fibrosis grade 3, almost cirrhosis. She was devastated and asked if there was still hope, if her liver could still recover. I explained that at fibrosis grade 3, it's still possible to stabilize and even partially reverse it, but it's much harder, takes much longer, and the risk of complications is much higher. If Helena had acted 5 years earlier, when she discovered the steatosis, she wouldn't be in this situation now. This brings me to a fundamental point I need you to understand. Fatty liver is not something to normalize, not something to put off, especially after 50. Every month you delay taking action is another month of inflammation, fibrosis, and accumulated damage. Now, let's consolidate everything I've explained so far. First, you need to understand that fatty liver after 50 is more dangerous because your body has a reduced capacity for cell regeneration, increased insulin resistance, and dysregulated chronic inflammation. Second, fatty liver disease is primarily caused by refined carbohydrates and sugars, not dietary fat. Third, the protocol to reverse it needs to include gradual weight loss focused on visceral fat, a carb-controlled diet with increased protein, resistance training at least 3 times a week, quality sleep, and strategic supplementation under medical supervision. Fourth, you need to monitor your lab results regularly, not just AST and ALT, but also elastography to assess fibrosis, a complete blood count, ferritin, blood glucose, insulin, and inflammatory markers. Fifth, you need to act now, not tomorrow, not next week, because after 50, the window to reverse this condition is much shorter than you think. If you have fatty liver disease, if you're over 50, if you want to reverse this and reclaim your health, hit that like button on this video right now so more people can access this life-saving information. Comment below with your AST and ALT levels, because when you share your numbers, you help others understand they're not alone, that this is more common than it seems, and that there's a solution. And if you know someone with fatty liver disease, someone over 50, someone suffering in silence, afraid it might turn into something worse, share this video with them now, because you could literally be saving their life. In the next video, I'll show you 5 foods you think are healthy, but are destroying your liver without you knowing. And one of these foods is probably on your table right now. Don't miss it. And until then, take care of your liver. Take care of yourself.